Well, Maarten, thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate you being in our corporate office here on Teal Ave in the city of Syracuse. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here, and it's a beautiful space, what you guys have done here. It's been cool to come here and meet here and see what you guys have done.
Yeah, I know Scott's vision here was to have people come in and really feel like it's got a vibe about, because the food service is so cool and so interesting, and we wanted our office to be just like that. So I think it's important that people come in, they're relaxed, and creativity not only in their design, but in dealing with it, because it's a relationship that we think is the most important thing. So thank you again. So you are the Director of Community Prosperity at the Allyn Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Very long title that I read today.
Yeah, right. Long and confusing, or maybe it doesn't mean much. Yeah, essentially, the Allyn Foundation asked me to come on board a few years ago, really with the idea of how do we improve quality of life in Central New York, and specifically in the city of Syracuse, through not just a kind of traditional, not-for-profit grant-making perspective, but from a community development perspective. And how can we, and from an economic perspective, how can we improve access to economic opportunities for folks in the more, marginalized communities in our city, so particularly certainly the South Side, near West Side, and North Side.
So when you and I met the first time, I think Meg was in the office with us, and we talked about, is Syracuse the only large metropolitan city without a Fortune, is it 500 company? Is that?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so that has always struck me as such a fascinating thing when you think about why isn't there more sort of large scale wealth in our community. Mm-hmm. And it's because none of them are headquartered here, right? So you certainly had Carrier and folks who have had large operations here, but not headquartered. And so if you look at other cities like Rochester, even though Kodak is long gone at this point, they still benefit from the amount of wealth that was created via Kodak and just the amount that Kodak has sort of endowed to that community that we don't have here.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest struggle, you think, with doing this community prosperity? Is it a lack of funding, or is it a lack of people that want to do it, or is it an acceptance, or is it a kind of a mixture of everything?
Yeah, it's certainly a mixture. I think the challenge is we've got a lot of good ideas in this community. We've got a lot of good leaders. It's sort of all getting on the same page, sticking to that page, and executing, recognizing that stuff takes a decade, right? And it's easy to sometimes look and see the next shiny object and be like, oh, I know we've been working on this for a few years, but let's go to the new cool thing, or we saw this in some other city, rather to say, no, let's stay focused. We believe in this vision for lifting people up out of poverty. Let's focus on that and see it all the way through.
Mm-hmm. You started too at the Near West Side Initiative, right? And that's been going on for how long now?
Let's see. It's got to be 10. It's probably 12 years at this point. And
mm-hmm.
So I first started on the North Side working with the Franciscans at the Assisi Center, and then was asked to start working at Syracuse University to do work on the Near West Side Initiative. And it was really through that work that Meg at the Allyn Foundation said, we want you to help others do that type of work on a larger scale throughout the city.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you were an adjunct professor at SU. I didn't know that until I read.
Barely. No, I teach one class, one semester a year at the School of Social Work. But I love it because the entire class is just talking about stuff going on in the city. And I think a lot of times, students are hearing theoretical work. And my entire class is here's the concept, and now here's how we're doing it in Syracuse. And now let's go visit it. We'll see how this fall semester goes with COVID and online learning, or however this whole thing's going to go. But hopefully I can still give the students kind of a taste of what Syracuse has to offer.
A lot of what we've been discussing since we started the podcast has been about COVID. Has that had an effect on the plans for the Salt City Market?
Yes and no, right? It's we're thinking about it a lot, but in some ways, since we're not slated to open until November, and the whole what we know changes almost weekly, right? It's hard to truly pull the trigger to say, hey, we got to invest in this or in this for COVID. And then you hear news and you try to be optimistic about it. Vaccines, you're like, well, are we going to invest in millions of dollars of infrastructure that maybe won't be necessary? And I think either way, it's we know, if nothing else, it's a focus on just being as hygienic as possible, right? And having the highest kind of cleanliness standards. And then looking at certainly small things, right? How do you have door pulls with your feet, rather than using your hands. I mean, that was certainly existed pre-COVID, but you now are like, oh, that's an easy fix. Let's do that. Having sanitation at all the doors, kind of hand sanitizer, that kind of stuff, masks. I think the big benefit we have going for us at the Salt City Market is we're going to be a brand new building. We have a ton of open space that allows us to naturally sort of social distance our furniture without losing a lot of capacity. And I think, unlike maybe some restaurants in town that have had like the same upholstery for 30 years, right? Ours will be sort of like, you can clean it well, and it is very clean, and that will kind of carry through in this project.
Yeah. I think you guys have had the benefit of going through it. I mean, if there's a silver lining, you have kind of seen what everybody has to do, and you have time to prepare to make those changes to
We're
make
watching,
that happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been saying on the other podcast, there's got to be something good come out of this. There has to be. Yeah. And you guys are one of the beneficiaries of being able to say, okay, we need the door pulls. We need to worry about sanitation. We need to worry about sneeze guards. We need to worry about all these things built into this program as we go. But there is a cost to those,
There is, no question. Actually probably the biggest thing that's changed is our furniture selection. Up until like 3 months ago, you would have considered upholstery, right? You would have considered all that. Now I'm like, there's absolutely no way that that's happening.
This timing is perfect. Wow. Thank you very much, Greg, because we were just talking about this in our meeting. We've had Fiona in the last few days making, I think, 150 pies.
Yeah, she had to do at least 1,200 slices. I don't know what that comes to in pies, but yeah.
So we just had one dropped off for you. But Fiona actually talked about a piece of equipment that we hadn't really thought about in the operation, but it's a blast chiller. And she was able to use this blast chiller to get these pies hard so that she could cut them, package them, but it talks about food safety. And so our timing is a little bit good on this, but we wanted to show this to you because that's one thing that we've talked about in our industry is everybody's now starting to think about the safety aspect more, which they always did, kind of to your point. Everybody always talked about hand sanitation and hand wash sinks and things like that, but now it's even more prevalent in everything that we're designing. I'm designing a firehouse right now, and they asked, can we get a guard on our island so that when we're cooking and we're usually just used to talk, now they want a breath guard in front, and they want those touchless faucets. They want all the things and so I think it's a good idea. This new technology that's coming out, I think has been a good thing. The touchless, the blast chillers, all the packaged, you hit the button and it drops down. So the one-touch things, I think are important. And what other things have you seen besides furniture that you guys have had to look at and change?
So I think to that thing around, the bathroom is like trying to do the 3-in-1 sinks, right? So you're just going straight from getting the soap dispenser, hands washing automatically, and then having like the dryer inside that same unit, trying to keep it as clean as possible. And it'll be interesting because what feels at odds right now is at times is like this idea of hygiene with environmental causes. So we're like, okay, we want to always be as environmentally friendly in this building as we can, and at times that feels really difficult with a lot of these new precautions. And so we're gonna have to figure that out. One of the things we've been talking to you guys about is doing a reusable container program, which we see in other major cities, but we just don't want all this waste. We don't really feel that confident in the compostables, knowing that it's hard for our city at least to take them. So what would it look like to have a system of returnable, containers, right? But will people use that in this era where they're like, I'm not going to buy food through that, return this container, and trust that you're probably sanitizing it. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. Yeah.
I drove by the building today, and it is coming along. It's amazing. So what is the schedule? I mean, and I know that we've talked about late fall, and you're on schedule, and everything's going well. And can you give us a little update on how things are coming?
We're on schedule. The building is still slated to, really get our entrepreneurs in there like the early part of October. Give them some time to play with the equipment, right? We'll have plenty of kinks to work out, I'm sure. And then to be open by mid-November, do a couple soft openings, stuff like that. So that's for the first floor. Same with the second floor, which is offices. And then the apartments we hope to be open in November, and things are on track, but are, we recognize that 99% of the population is only ever going to go on the first floor. We want that to be ready. And if we got to wait a couple weeks on the apartments, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. How many apartments are there?
26, a mix of 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and doing all mixed income apartments. So everything from, folks certainly with affordability challenges and having access to, Section 8 voucher system all the way to market rents.
So the idea with the entrepreneurs is when they open up and they get going, if they were successful and they wanted to move on and open their own place, is that the goal, or is it, hey, okay, I'm very happy here, I want to stay here for a long time, this works well, I can stay here? What is kind of the roadmap for that?
Yeah, a lot of places say sign a 3-year lease, and at the end of that lease, like either you're sort of done or you leave the nest and go open your own. We've really followed a model out of Minneapolis called Midtown Global Market, which says like maybe after 3 years you realize this isn't for me. Maybe after 3 years you realize this is where I want to be, and like I don't want my own brick and mortar. I see the advantages of being in this shared space. And then the other option obviously is I want to expand, and maybe I still keep a space here and I open up somewhere else, or maybe it's okay, I'm heading out. This has been great, and now I'm going to open up a bigger space of my own. And we fully support all of those, right? Including, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. The whole goal with the food hall was let people dip their toe into this, business, and if they don't want to do it, recognize that it hasn't left them with crippling debt, right? Yeah. That all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm $200,000 deep into a restaurant. I can't get out of this. Yeah. In our case, really modest investment on their end, certainly significant investment on our end, but we'll just have new folks that would come through.
I think the general public really doesn't understand, and you're probably getting a good taste of it, how complex it is, how hard it is, how expensive it is, and the failure rate is just, it's like 90%. I who would say, I want to invest my life savings in something? Right. But if you truly love something, I think that's what, is really important. When we see it, when we talk to people, and when we get going with people, you can tell the people that really are, they just love it. And that's all they think about, and that's all they want to do.
Right.
And, we've been listening to podcasts. Podcasts are new to me in the last 6 months, but Anthony turned me on to them. I've been listening to all these different entrepreneurs that have gotten in, and the different reasons they got in. And it's been really interesting to see. And those people, everybody he's interviewed, or anybody we've interviewed, has been successful because they have that passion, that drive. But one of the biggest problems they have is money. Yeah. In that beginning, sure. I still listen to the one, and I can't remember the person's name, but he said he charged every credit card he owned. And that debt, that's just like you said. And you guys are doing something that is, hey, okay, let's take that off the table. Right. But you guys have also helped him with business plans and financing and others. So what can you tell us what you guys have done?
Yeah, the whole thing started, two years ago, but really we started working with our entrepreneurs a year and a half ago, probably. It started with interview process. We just put out a general call to the public. We had over 150 folks express interest, came to some meetings, and then out of that we had about 75 or 80 folks apply to say, hey, we want to be in the market. Met with them all, and through that really said, okay, about 30 or maybe a little less, 25 of these folks feel ready, right? That you saw the passion, you saw some of the experience. It wasn't like, oh, I cook only in my home and like I'm ready. It was, It had some line cook experience or something at least. And then we started to do a series of pop-up events with them, takeout events, and all through that having them do business classes, get technical assistance from everything from like QuickBooks and getting your DBA and getting all your doing ServeSafe and everything else. But then now, as we've sort of selected the 8 that we're currently working with, to say, okay, now what's a website look like? What's your social media look like? Let's have a social media contest where at the end of it, whoever gets the most new followers gets $1,000 toward marketing in the future. Right? Like all those kind of things to get them to understand, like it's not just about cooking food. It's about getting people in the doors. It's about doing good bookkeeping so that you can keep this stuff straight. Working with people like with Paul Nojame, and certainly also with Cisco and other large food vendors to say, hey, come in, talk to them about what it looks like to order food at a large scale that they're not used to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would imagine that's got to be a challenge because of all the the barriers of doing business sometimes at this scale. It's one thing to do one restaurant, but when you're looking at 8, and you have another, 2 venues or 1 venue open that you haven't selected yet?
So we have, in total there's 10 stalls, of which we purposely did not select 2 yet, because we really are looking for those. We thought 8 startups, like that's plenty, right? That's like already, why are we doing this? And then the other 2, we call them second steppers. The idea of somebody who might want to open up a second location. They've been really successful somewhere else. Another result of COVID, we'll kind of see what happens is, do folks unfortunately need to close their doors in their location because they just can't afford it, and then want to come back and say, like, but I'm a passionate cook, I want to try a new concept, and then our space might be really viable from like a cost perspective. So we've got a lot of people interested in those 2 remaining spaces, going to see kind of what pans out in the next month or 2. But then on top of that, we're just like asking for punishment. We have a coffee shop and bar opening up, right? Right, which is also their first time. They're a coffee shop, but this will be the first time they open up they manage a bar. And then for the first time in their 40-year history, the Syracuse Cooperative Market is opening their doors to a second location, which is pretty exciting. And then we have a community kitchen, right? That's open up for events and everything else. A lot of moving pieces. For sure.
And I think that ambition is actually, to me, I think it's exciting, especially for Syracuse. I think you kind of said everything's lined up. I think everything is lined up. I think COVID absolutely devastated some people, but that momentum is still there. I think it's just this blip, and we're going to go back up because I think the stars are aligned. You've got, I think, great leadership in Mayor Walsh. We got the county executive and everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. And your team, tell us about who's going to help you do this, because obviously there's got to be a pretty good sized team behind you to do the community market, the community kitchen, totally. Salt City Coffee, then 10 vendors. I mean, it's not one person, is it?
It's a bunch of people, and it's not like it was just this new idea that came to the Allyn Foundation or to me like 2 years ago. It's something that a whole group of folks have been working on for like 5+ years. So it really came out largely from the north side. Good friend and coworker Dominic Robinson there and his team have been thinking about, like, how do we support new Americans living in that community who want to start a small business. And they had actually applied for like a Bloomberg grant to renovate a building there. That would be a minier version of what we're going to end up doing. They made it to the finals, didn't pan out, and sort of the idea was shelved. And same time, we had gotten to know Adam Sudman, who now works for us, who was doing a host of pop-ups with a lot of new American cuisines, who then opened the With Love restaurant in partnership with OCC, which again was entrepreneurial kind of development. And we said, like, let's reimagine this idea and take what Adam has learned through the With Love restaurant experience, and let's now go even bigger, but base it off of a model that's existed for 25 years in Minneapolis. And so they have been a huge help to us, giving us everything from like what's worked, what hasn't, blueprints to leases. Like they sort of handed us everything and said, we just want this to be successful for you. But so certainly locally, we also do have, so Adam Sudman is our market manager. We just hired this awesome young lady, CJ Butler, who's our communications and marketing specialist. We'll have to hire still a property manager. We haven't gotten there. And then there is this whole team of folks at Center State CEO who we partner with to do a lot of the entrepreneurial development.
I always remember when I did With Love with Adam, and I didn't know exactly what was. I just was told it was going to be a pop up, and the restaurant was going to change there. And the first meal I had to take my shoes off, sit down in that front area, and I ate food that I don't think I would have ever eaten if I hadn't had the chance to design that restaurant. And that's what excites me, and that's what I think Syracuse is looking forward to. I hope, that all these different types of food and all these things. Can you give us a little breadth of the menu? I mean, just some highlights that you think are people that are, maybe listening. And I hope there's more people listening. If you enjoy this, please subscribe to our podcast or like us. Is that right, Anthony?
You're becoming a pro.
Like us? Yeah. So please let us know. But yeah, give us some, of the vendors that you have chosen so far.
Menu. So it is diverse. I think it's a great cross section of what's in Syracuse. I think we would have loved to still have even more diversity, but we've got. So we've got Thai food through Sarah. Her business is Firecracker Thai Kitchen. She's worked over at Lemongrass for a number of years in Citronelle, so is doing her own thing. We've got Nauk, who's doing Vietnamese food, and she's one of those folks who's like, yeah, Vietnamese food that you Americans are eating, like, you're eating the safe stuff. Like, it's been so sort of homogenized. Like, I'm going to show you some Vietnamese food, and I'll tell you what, she's like taking some risks, and it is phenomenal. It's really great. So hers, we have Latoya doing Jamaican food. Again, just like a true family right from Jamaica who's been here. She's a nurse currently and is like, okay, I really want to start this. Fiona with the pies, love it. What she said in her interview is like, you've got two types of people. You've got cake people and you've got pie people. And then she dropped a explicit bomb on us about how she feels about cake people, right? She's like, I do pies and you better like it. And just, again, that passion, right, came through. With her, Dreamer, doing Miss Prissy, she's done really great stuff with Southern food for a long time. Had a great catering business, but this will give her like that brick and mortar space. Slayro Mason, so excited for this guy. He's doing solutions, soul food, but like I've never had ribs like this guy's ribs, and they're totally different. They're like oven roasted ribs, So it's not going to be like, oh, this guy's trying to do what Dinosaur does really well. Like, they have a very unique taste, so good. So to round it out, then you've also got Yuen, who's doing cupcakes, and they are not just cupcakes; they're like pieces of art. Her company's Cake Bar, just beautiful stuff. And then lastly is Big in Burma, and kind of save them for last here is just like we took a field trip with our entrepreneurs down to New York City, and we said we want you to go to your cuisines, like to restaurants in the city of your cuisine, and see what they're doing really well, maybe what you don't like. We Googled Burmese food, and there's not a single Burmese restaurant in New York City, right? Think about it. In New York City, there is no Burmese food. It is just not a cuisine that in this part of our country is readily available. So I think that's what's going to be so exciting, is that for a lot of people it might be confusing at first to be like, what is this? But it is so good and so flavorful, and certainly has like a Southeast Asian flair to it, but is also really unique.
It's been exciting to work with them because they've been coming here and we've been helping design and help work with them, and I like that family aspect. I can't remember exactly who it was, but even with Slay and Dreamer, they were talking about it, and then they came back after and they wanted to look more and look at different things. And it's been interesting to see how they're planning it, how they're doing it, and how they've been willing to listen, that they haven't sat there and said, okay, we got it. Just, this is what we want. They all seem to have that same passion, that same drive, that same, have you seen any of your things that they need? Do you think that there's some other things that people can do to help them, or?
I think everybody's just, including us, right? We're like drinking from a fire hose with like the amount of things to get ready for. And I think Adam's done a good job of having like this. He's a pretty meticulous guy, and so he's just got like spreadsheet after spreadsheet of like checklists, right? But there's just so many things. It's like, okay, it's ambitious to open up in November. What are all the things between now and then that have to happen? It's tough. These are entrepreneurs who have other jobs, right? With the exception of like one or two who have sort of been more in the catering space. And honestly, what they need the most right now is like hours, like just time to focus on it. I think that's probably the only thing that frustrates us at times is like, we need you to focus on your business, but it's like, but we also we're going through a global pandemic and you're trying to raise families, like all these different things. So there's a lot on their plate, but they seem to be rising to the occasion.
So as you guys have gone through this process, what's the biggest thing you learned? What has been a challenge? What was easier than you thought? What was harder than you thought?
That's a good question. Has anything been easier than we thought? I think what's been easier is like we have been able to surround ourselves with such great partners, right? And certainly Gerharz being one of them, like folks who quickly bought into the mission and were willing to look at us a little bit differently than maybe like a traditional one-off restaurant or one-off like not-for-profit opportunity or whatever. And we're like, okay, no, you're really trying to do something pretty ambitious here. We're going to need to hold your hand at times because you don't know what you want or you need, right? We've certainly had that, I'm sure, here plenty of times. But then also people giving us space when we know exactly what we want. And we're like, no, this is what we want, and like we will not waver from it. So I think that's been awesome to have so much support from the city hall, the county, everybody else. Trying to think a challenge.
I know we talked earlier, you said there's so many things you have to answer every day, like, between light bulbs or this or that.
It's getting real specific.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's not, before, there's no book.
No.
It was kind of like somebody said to me the other day about the pandemic, well, you did that right or you did that wrong. And I'm like, if there was anybody around 100 years ago that could tell me how to do it,
right,
please tell me, because you're just doing what you think is in the best interest of
Yeah.
your business, of your family, of your, of
Yeah.
your community. And, it's the same thing with you. No one sat there and said, okay, Maarten, here you go.
I'm not a developer. I'm not trying to do this ever again. Like, this is
Yeah.
kind of a one-off thing. And,
Yeah.
the one thing that's been hard for us that I'm sure you guys are so used to is you're working in, like, the theoretical and working in, like, the drawing phase of this, right? So I'm staring at drawings of kitchen equipment and kitchen layouts.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how is this going to really feel when we're standing there? And how can we make those changes? And I've had to make 1,000 decisions, from furniture to, light fixtures to whatever, door pulls and everything else. And they all look good on their own. How will they look together, right? Yeah. And you think you've got it, but, like, that furniture is going to arrive, and either we hit it or we missed it. Well, hopefully we hit it.
I'm renovating. I bought a new house and I'm moving in a couple of weeks. And so the architect sent me these 3D things, and they're beautiful. And we talk about 3D all the time. And I was like, I just need to see a plain view of it, because I'm really just that. I want to see how it spatially fits in the thing. 3D is nice,
right,
but for me, and I know we did both with everybody that came in, but that was just kind of an eye-opener for me. And the light bulb went off, and I said, I love 3D, but some people, it depends on who it is and how they sense it. And for us, it is a little easier because we do it every day and we do 120 drawings a year. But for you guys, this is the first 10 you've probably ever done and probably ever will do.
Right,
but,
exactly.
That's why I think partnerships are so important, because I think you had mentioned that earlier with Paul Nojame and Cisco and VIP and all the others that have in the city and the county. To me, that's the biggest thing. If you have trusted partners that can help you get through this process, it makes it that much easier. And, when you open up those partners to help you get through it, because you're going to need, 10 places are going to need, there's going to be trucks in and out of there, people in and out of there, maintenance, security, cleaning, that's going to be a vibrant building. And that's a great part of town to be down in too, that needs that help. Yep. When we redid the rescue mission kitchen, I was surprised at how many people are in that area all the time and how much is going on. So you said fall of opening, and you guys are on schedule and on ready to go.
Yeah.
What are the hours? Have you guys set those yet?
We have. I'll probably screw it up, but it's certainly open, 7 days a week, a little less on Sunday, but typically the market is open from 11 to 9. But then, it's kind of bookended by the co-op and the Salt City Coffee and Bar. That coffee, they'll be open by 7, and they'll be open till, midnight or 1 or whatever it is. And same with the co-op. They've got a bit longer hours than we will. And I'm sure that'll sort of also change as we see how does the community respond and what works, what doesn't. On Sunday, we'll only be open, I think, from like 11 to 5. Still want to get kind of the brunch crowd. But, we know that Sunday in Syracuse is still a little more sleepy than maybe other communities.
Yeah. We aren't like any other community, I swear to people. People from Syracuse, we get it, but other people look at you and go, and they're like, no, welcome to Syracuse. Yep. Well, thank God, But one of the questions that I've been thinking about is, these, like Salt City Coffee, to me, that's an incredible story. And I think what you guys are doing and partnering with them, here's two people that were never in this type of business, and now they're in this business, and it's, that to me is going to be a really, all of them are going to be exciting, but that one's a little bit bigger, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit different.
Yep.
And I think that's exciting because they've got some great products and great coffee and their vibe and their passion for it is.
They're just a good family, right? For us, I think this has all started, all 8 of our entrepreneurs and certainly them in the co-op. It's who are people that we want to see on a day-to-day basis, right? We're going to see these people a lot. We're not just a landlord sort of tenant relationship. We are in each other's business all day, every day. Yeah. And so we had to start with we know Aaron and Maria at Salt City Coffee. They're good people. They believe in the mission of what we're trying to do with everybody else. They are totally in lockstep, and they were part of that. They went through the same entrepreneurial training program that we had all of our other entrepreneurs go through, except they did it a few years earlier for the coffee shop. And seeing their success on a part of town that many people told them you're nuts, that won't work on West Onondaga Street, right? And the way they've gotten such a diverse community to come in there and shop regularly. We're like, and then when they said they want to do a bar concept, we thought like that's perfect.
And that's been the interesting thing when I listen to some of these podcasts and you sit there and say, just like that, no, don't go there. Don't do this. Don't do that. You got to have this. You got to have this. You got to have that. They had none of that. Mm-hmm. They went with their gut. Mm-hmm. They had a passion. And look at it. They're flourishing. Because that's a tenet that probably won't change.
No,
hopefully not, because that's
like,
such a,
right.
That's kind of that
that's
anchor.
An anchor. Right.
Yeah. And that's to me, people, I was, not to plug Anthony, but, Syracuse is one of the top coffee drinking areas. And I was thinking about that. And you think about all these different coffee companies. And to me, it's exciting because that is what I think that diversity is what's going to bring more people down. Exactly. And they're going to, like, I would have never experienced Salt City Coffee if I hadn't, 1, been down there, 2, helped them design, and 3, have had the product. And oh my God. And now I'm like,
so
they're such good people. It's such good coffee. And they're passionate about it. And they've taught us some things about, layout and design and when it comes to a coffee shop and things like that. So what is the website and is there anything else that you think our listeners could learn from the Salt City Market opening?
Sure. Yeah. So certainly we're on, on Facebook and Instagram at Salt City Market. We are at saltcitymarket.com, and we're going through a big kind of change in that website. We'll see how it goes with kind of future online ordering and everything else through that as well. Certainly will be available. And also just kind of stay tuned. We're going to do another series of pop-ups in July out of the Old with Love kitchen space. Kind of more consistent. It'll be Wednesdays, Thursday, Fridays, takeout, curbside. Food will be available from different entrepreneurs every single week, right? So I think the first week it's Slay doing kind of Southern barbecue. And it'll just change after that, giving our folks more practice, getting the word out for them. Because it's always interesting, right? We're marketing ourselves, certainly, the market, but we also want to make sure that we're getting the word out about all the individual tenants.
We've talked about doing it out in our parking lot, like having a food truck or something.
Yeah.
And I do offer it to you guys if you want to do, because your pop-ups sell out fast. Like
they sell out fast. Like we sold out in like 20 minutes last time. Yeah.
And I get the email and I go and it's sold. And I'm like, all right, they got to figure this out because this is either a really good thing or they got to do more pop-ups. Because I was like, we should do it in the parking lot here and get everybody, because we have the kitchen that Fiona used.
Yeah.
And, I think that's going to be a great resource for all the people that when they want to practice or get closer.
Oh, my God. The fact that Fiona's been, what do you think, her and her family have been there for 40-plus hours easy, right?
God, yeah. Every time you walk in there, 1, it smelled amazing. Yeah. 2, it was good practice. I think that's a thing that, I was with somebody today, and they are 3 weeks before they open up, they're going to start making, they're doing a dough recipe, and they want to, for 3 weeks, test it, produce it, bake it, serve it for 3 weeks before they even open up. So this was a great trial run for her. And they're already perfecting their recipes, but when you do it for that many people in that type of setting, like I had to laugh a little bit because our kitchen's big. And I'm thinking, all right, her new stall is what, 200, 300 square feet?
Yep.
That's a lot to do in a little bit of space, but they're going to have all the tools. And I think you guys have done a great job of providing them the right equipment to do the right job. So, but yeah, you guys want to do a pop-up, we'd love to have
that sounds fun. We got, the more we can do between now and November, right, to get Syracuse to understand what the market is and who's in it and how it all kind of interrelates. So we'd love to do that.
I think you're going to be surprised at how many people from the suburbs come in too. I think that's going to be...
That's the experiment, right? That's the hope. I mean, I think that's certainly what we're banking on. The business model requires that every walk of life comes. But we've had so many people that are like foodies, right? And they also, we're creating a space that's not just food. It's also like a gathering space. So once gathering is sort of back on people's radar post-COVID, like it'll be, we certainly believe for downtown, it'll be like the coolest place to go, whether it's sunny and you're in our alleyway, in our plaza area, eating outside or around the fire pit, or whatever the case might be, or inside. Where else can I think about families a lot, right? So I've got 3 little kids. I want to be able to get something really different. I want to try Burmese food I've never had in my life, but I also want to make sure all right, my kids aren't there yet in their adventure. Like, what are they going to love? They're going to love Slay's, like roasted chicken, mac and cheese, like that'll be all good. And be able to then sit at the same table, and have meals from whatever 8 different countries would be pretty cool.
Is New York the closest New York City the closest food hall, or is there? What is the closest one to us?
There's some other, I mean, there's ones that are doing it kind of real small. The West Side Bazaar in Buffalo.
Okay.
It's been really cool. Also, like entrepreneurial development, pretty grassroots. I'm sure there's more close by. I think there's one in Troy, New York. It's a little smaller. There's like 6, I think, or so vendors. But they're popping up everywhere. I think what makes ours a little different, again, is that it's the added complexity of we're trying to really give folks a leg up. And it's not just like a landlord-tenant relationship. It's a partnership. So, yeah, we'll see.
And that's where the director of community prosperity comes in.
There you go. So it's all connected.
We're going to round that back up. Thank you again, Maarten, for coming. Enjoy that piece of pie that Fiona made.
Absolutely.
And thank you very much.
All right.